In the NBA, fans, the media, analysts, we all like to assess what any given player's potential ceiling is. In other words, at their peak, what type of player will they be? Where will they rank among the league's best players? And often, what's a player comparison that we can use for their ceiling? Now, I had a subscriber ask me this a few days ago on what I thought each player's ceiling was on the Bulls roster and if I could do a video on it. And I was going back through the comments to find this so I could give credit to the person who asked the question, and for the life of me, I could not find it between all of my recent videos. So shout out to whoever left this question that sparked this video idea, and if I do find it, I'll be sure to give you a personal shout out in another video. But that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You were listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now guys, a few weeks back, I partnered with an app called Viget, which is a free money betting app on sports. It's a social media sports app that allows you to bet on sporting events entirely for free using fake money, but you can win actual prizes like an Amazon gift card or a flat screen TV by cashing out your fake money tokens that you win from betting on these sporting events. And I don't like to do ads or sponsorships on my videos very often because I know you guys are here for the content, but I did want to say that I'm likely going to be starting a betting league for the channel in that app for some friendly competition within the Bull Central community. So if you have already downloaded the app or if you're interested in downloading it, let me know if you would want to join the betting league. The link to the app is in the description, and you can use my referral code to receive some free tokens to get you started using the code BullCentral. But anyway, let's get back into the topic at hand for today's video, because it's a topic that I think we often discuss, in either the comments on the videos or in the Discord, and it's assessing what is a ceiling for certain guys on the Bulls roster. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to be going through every single player on the roster, partly because some of these guys are older and have already likely hit their peak or even past their peak. I'm talking about guys like Garrett Temple, Thaddeus Young, Tomas Satoransky, Al-Farouq Amino. Even a guy like Vucevic has probably hit his ceiling. At least what we're seeing from him today is likely the best that he's going to get. And I'm also not going to go over guys like Ryan Archie, Cristiano Felicio, Javonte Green, because although they're a bit younger, I think it's safe to say that they're likely not going to continue progressing further and have hit their ceiling. I'm also not going to touch on two-way contract players like Devon Dotson and Adam Moka. So any of the players on the roster that I didn't just mention is who I'll be covering today in this video. So I'm going to start with our best player and all-star in Zach LaVine. Now, LaVine is 26, so you could argue that he is in the peak of his prime, has just entered his prime, or that he's right about to enter it. But the fact of the matter is LaVine has continued to get better with every passing season and has improved a lot of aspects about his game that he was often critiqued about for previously. Things like being a high-volume scorer and not a very efficient on offense, a poor defender, low basketball IQ, but LaVine has certainly proven to be a very efficient scorer. And the fact that he's close to the 50-40-90 club in terms of his shooting from three and free throw shooting. And he's still not the best defender, but he has improved in that area in some regards, particularly with his on-ball defense. And he's become a much smarter player in terms of his playmaking ability and better decision-making on the court. Now, I will say my biggest issue still remains with LaVine is that he does take some pretty ill-advised shots in crunch time. Sometimes he makes them, sometimes he doesn't. He does still have a tendency to try to take over the game himself when his team is behind, which rarely proves to be effective, and he still needs to be taking care of the ball better. He has one of the highest turnover rates in the entire league, but all of that being said, I think, when we talk about a ceiling for a guy like Zach LaVine, I actually do think he still can get a little better because the skills are there. He has all the tools to be an elite player in this league with his gifted athleticism, his efficient shooting on offense, his slashing ability, and I think the only thing that is really holding him back from being a star to a superstar, and yes, I don't think LaVine is a superstar, is that, well, one, he still needs to work on his defense, but more importantly, making better decisions in clutch situations and focusing on being a leader for this team and making his teammates better. I think more often than not, you see LaVine trying to take over and be the man when he should be trusting in his teammates more. So I don't think that LaVine has hit his ceiling. I do still think he can get better, and if I had to give him a player comparison for his ceiling, now the numbers aside, because these are going to be different eras of the NBA, I would say someone like Dominique Wilkins, and not because Dominique was an incredible dunker, a human highlight reel, which we all know Zach is as well, but no, more so because Dominique was actually a very incredible player. player, an incredible scorer and a force in the NBA during his tenure. People just forget that because he was always overshadowed by Jordan, which everyone really was at that time. But Wilkins is a top 100 all-time NBA player. You could even argue he is in the top 50 all-time in the NBA. And I think Zach, if given the right coaching, the right mindset of focusing on the areas of deficiencies that he currently has right now, I do think it's not out of the question for LaVine to be a top 100 all-time NBA player or even top 50. He does have to start winning though. Making the playoffs as a start, even making deep run in the playoffs would be able to get him to that point. But he is only 26 and still has quite a few years left to go in the league. Next up, let's do Lauri Markkanen. Now, this one is tough because if you had asked me this in, say, Markkanen's rookie or sophomore season, I would have said that he had superstar potential just because of how good and effective he was right out of the gate when entering into the NBA. He was a great shooter, but he was also able to move well with the ball for a big man. He was aggressive in getting rebounds. And of course, most recently, we just haven't seen that from Lauri. He hasn't been aggressive in the paint on defense or on offense. His defense in general has continued to worsen. He rarely puts up shot attempts. And of course, he lost his starting role in getting moved to the bench, and he's playing in a contract year. I don't see that fire in Markkanen. I don't see that desire and assertiveness on the court that we saw in his first 2 years in the league. I honestly don't really know what happened. Some people will say Jim Boylen ruined his career, which, okay, maybe to an extent, but also some of that accountability has to be placed on Markkanen himself. All of that being said, I do still think Lauri has potential, and maybe a change of scenery can actually bring out some of that potential that I think that he still possesses. Maybe on a team that is already strong defensively but needs a solid shooter and a stretch big man that can give them some offense and spacing on the court, and then maybe the pressure will be off Lauri to step it up more on defense like he currently has for the Bulls. He is only 23. I would say his ceiling, and this might even be a bit of a stretch now, is a player that is just below an all-star level. One of those guys that probably gets votes for the all-star game, and maybe even a couple years he almost makes it, but he comes up just short. I'm thinking of maybe guys like Wally Szczerbiak, who actually did make one all-star appearance in his career. Not saying that they are direct comparisons, but just a solid player in the league who was a good shooter and an offensive threat that was kind of on the fringe all-star, level, so to speak, in the league. Next up, let's go with Coby White, the most polarizing player for Bulls fans in terms of their viewpoints on him. I've always said I kind of fall in the middle on the Coby potential spectrum because I know some fans act like he's going to be a future Hall of Famer, while others think that he's going to be in the G League next season. I personally think Coby will be a great player in this league, likely not as a point guard, but a shooting guard that can get you points in a hurry. I don't think, Coby White will ever be an all-star, but I do think he could be a strong player on offense as he continues to develop in this league. I'm thinking of a guy like Monte Ellis or Jamal Crawford, which I know some of you guys will say that's a horrible comparison for Coby. He's going to be way better than them, and it's possible, at least, I hope so anyway, if he's going to remain on the Bulls. But Coby really, he really has to figure out how to be at least a decent defensive player, a much better decision maker on the court, and just be a more consistent player on offense. When I look at guys like Jamal Crawford and Monte Ellis, they were incredible scorers. Maybe not the most efficient, they were high volume scorers who weren't that great on defense and probably didn't have the highest basketball IQ at times, but they were great players in the NBA. So to say Coby White has a similar ceiling to those guys, I don't think is an unfair comparison at all, given their impact and where they were in their peaks in the league. Let's do Patrick Williams, because Patrick is the youngest player on the Bulls roster. He was the number 4 pick in this year's draft, and despite his recent slump, I think we can all see that this kid has a lot of potential. Just based on his size, his physique, his sheer athleticism, and defensive ability for being a 19-year-old. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on Patrick because I actually made a video a couple months back that talked about Patrick Williams' potential specifically, which I'll leave linked in the description in case you guys missed it or you want to check it out. But from my point of view, the kid has an incredibly high ceiling. I know we tend to hype up Patrick Williams a bit as Bulls fans, and we're biased in that regard, I know that. But I think as long as Patrick can up his game on offense, be more aggressive in getting to the basket, improving his three-point shot, and even further working on his defense, which is already solid, he is going to be a formidable player in this league. Now, I hate the Kawhi Leonard comparisons. That's actually what I talked about in that video I had just mentioned, is that it's not fair to put that kind of pressure on a kid like Patrick Williams, who's just entered the league, to, comparing him to a superstar and likely future Hall of Famer when Patrick hasn't even finished one season in the league. But boy, does he look like a type of player that Kawhi Leonard was in his rookie year. A guy that was very quiet, wasn't flashy, didn't put up crazy offensive numbers, but was very effective on defense. And of course, had the athleticism to ultimately become a great offensive player as well, which I can see in Patrick. So in short, I think Patrick Williams, because he's only 19 and has so much time to develop, I think his ceiling is through the roof. I do think he has the potential, not saying that he will get there, but his ceiling and potential is to be one of the best two-way players in the league and a potential superstar. Let's do Troy Brown Jr. as well, and this one's a little harder for me because I'll admit I didn't know much about Troy Brown Jr. at all before the Bulls traded for him. And obviously I've only seen him play in a handful of games since he joined the team. He's 21, he's a great defender and is very athletic and has shown the ability to be a decent player on offense when given the keys to do so. I think Brown Jr., to really thrive is going to be all about being given the opportunity to do so. I've said it in here a lot. I would love to see Troy getting more minutes over a guy like Denzel, just because the Bulls really need more guys who can hustle on defense. I do think he has a ceiling to be a great player, not an all-star, but a great role player in this league. Maybe someone like a Terry Rozier, at least the way Terry Rozier has been playing this season, or a Nicholas Batum at his peak, because he was actually a pretty solid defender when he was in his years back in Portland in his prime. Then we have Daniel Tice, who is a bit older. Obviously, he's 29, so it's likely he's kind of already hit his peak or at his ceiling. I do think he could get slightly better in the next season or two. Now, he's never going to be an all-star, but maybe, just maybe, he could find himself on an all-defensive team if he continues to hustle and grind and get even better on defense. I would say that likely his ceiling in a player comparison maybe is like a Birdman type player, although you could argue he's already better than Birdman given he's significantly better offensively than Chris Andersen ever was. But the hustle on defense and shot blocking ability is something I could see him getting to, is what I meant by that in that player comparison. And then finally, Denzel Valentine, my guy Denzel. I mean, I don't know if there's much to say about Denzel, actually. I likely should have included him in those guys that I mentioned at the beginning because he's already 27. I'm not sure I see much in the way of increased potential or a higher ceiling than what we already know about Denzel. Maybe Valentine can get slightly better, improve his decision making on the court and taking better shots. Then maybe he could be a solid rotational player in the NBA or a spark in scoring off the bench for a contending team, rather than essentially being in and out of the rotation that we've seen from him throughout his career with the Bulls. So there you have it. Those are my assessment of the Bulls players and their ceilings in this league, their overall potential, some player comparisons at their ceilings. I'm sure there's going to be some of you guys who are going to disagree with me on this, which is totally fine, and I want to hear them in the comments. Let me know what you guys think, and also let me know if you're interested in starting a betting league using the Viget app. Like I said, link is in the description to download the app, and you can use my referral code Bulls Central to get yourself some free tokens when you sign up. Be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, as always, and I will catch you in the next one.